it's been a really great experience just coming back here and staying here and setting up a show. It's actually quite surreal. I was born on the coast, around Buderim, North Buderim area. I've always done a bit of everything, you know. I never really call myself a painter or a drawer, even though I think a lot of the practice comes back to drawing and mark making. I've always done, you know, a bit of video, ceramics, and, you know, kind of flirted with a lot of mediums, but I think a lot of people probably know my drawing practice. When I first did these ceramics, I was calling them blobs, and then it turned to ghosts, and then it turned to, you know, I was calling them all weird names. I didn't know what to actually title them, like spirits, and other people, it'll be like the third time they've seen it, and they'll say, oh, there's actually a face there, is that a face, you know? And I kind of like that it kind of sits in that realm. It doesn't have to be a face, it could just be a blob or my thumbprints, and that's how you read it, but some people will see a face, you know, like, I mean, it's like anything, I kind of see faces in a lot of different things, you know, like in nature or just even in the tiled floor here, you know, they're kind of everywhere, and that's where it kind of comes in with that ghostly or the other presence, or, you know, there's things happening that we can't control around us, and yeah, it's just as it is. I wasn't too precious with them. I just kind of made them and, you know, channeled these kind of weird figures and indentations and finger marks that kind of make these portraits or faces within and on the actual vessel. A lot of this practice that I've been doing for the last 5 years, I guess, is all about the portrait as well. So you'll see moons or suns or eyes, they could be anything, but, you know, I guess I'm kind of thinking about the portrait format, the gaze, you know, like perception. So I guess a lot of those kind of motifs, like the circles or the dots or peepholes or, you know, it all comes back to the gaze, basically. Yeah. The idea of another, or, you know, you can see yourself in these pieces. That's why one of the sculptures is sitting on a mirror base. You can kind of look into it and it's got another dimension. The bronze work directly correlates with this group of work. So that was just all the slip and the excess clay that was falling on the ground collected. And then I'd place it in a bucket, and then after about, I think it was maybe 8 months or maybe even longer, I got all that dry clay, re-wet it and reworked it, and then sat down, and in, I think, like 15 minutes, I just kind of molded that guy, and he came out, well, the double head thing with the faces on the back as well. I don't do it like a religious thing, but just kind of try and channel something, and whatever face comes out, and that came out. So that was like just the slip and slop, or the excess, kind of like the shavings that was left over, like the history of those pieces. And then it was like just a small clay sculpture, and I wanted it to be just have a bit more reverence. So I got it cast and then destroyed the actual original. So that's an addition of 5, but it's just a bit more precious, but it's not, if you know what I mean. Like, so it plays on that duality again. For me, it all just kind of makes sense when I'm doing it, you know. And I guess for the audience to come in, they sometimes they don't pick it up, but sometimes they'll just, you know, subconsciously take these things on, and hopefully it'll make sense to them when they're kind of walking around the space and seeing the correlation between a print and a ceramic piece, and the ceramic piece and the wall drawing, or the wall drawing and, you know, the painting, or the video, you know. I wouldn't call myself a hoarder, but I am definitely a collector. I collect a lot from markets, or, you know, when I'm traveling, I buy little trinkets and things, you know, sometimes directly, you know, for the work, but oftentimes it's just something that I find interesting, or it relates some way to my ideas that I'm doing. And then I'll just sit there in the studio, and there's things that have been sitting in my studio for 5 years already, and I know it's going to come into the practice sometime, but it's not quite there yet. But some of these found objects, like the drum and, you know, the sarong and the cue balls and stuff like that, they were just kind of laying around. I didn't really know what my practice was. I was kind of just making, and it's only lately I started thinking about ideas of time and labor and, history and perception, and all those things were kind of correlating. And like I said, I don't really want to know the end point. I just kind of want to make in that process, but think of those ideas. So when, the audience or the viewer looks at the work, they have as much, voice in what the outcome is as me as an artist, I don't really think I need to have an end product or end statement. It's just kind of, it sits in the world and it's just ready to be interpreted however it can be interpreted.